Welcome to the GoAnywhere Upgrade video for Windows customers with a non-Derby database. We'll most specifically go into Microsoft SQL, but there might be some users that could use this for other databases. So what we're going to do is we're going to upgrade from 7.3.1 to the latest release as of October 13th, which is 7.8.4 to get your environment up to the latest release. First thing you want to do is make sure you're on the actual GoAnywhere server. You can use remote desktop or other utility. You cannot complete the upgrade from your workstation, your desktop. It has to go from the actual GoAnywhere servers. So that's the first thing. We got to make sure we're on there, and we're going to figure out what version we're on. So we're going to go to the admin console, and we're going to sign in and make sure we're on at least 7.3.1 or newer. To do that, you just go to Help and About, and you'll see our version right here, 7.3.1. 7.3.1. While you're in here, you'll also want to find the install directory. So you can go to the system info and find installation directory or install dir. Yours may be C program files, help systems, D program files, Lenovo software. It could even be the D drive. Lots of different places to place it, but that's typically the install directory. Plus, you want to figure out if you're on a non-Derby database. Plus, check if the FIPS mode is true or false. There's another step with FIPS mode and SQL with integrated authentication. Pretty rare to have that combo, but hopefully we can get to that by the end of this video and show you a little tip on that. So once we know our install directory, we're going to jot that down. We're going to jot down our versions. We've got both those listed, and we want to make sure our database under system database configuration is not Derby. So inside of here, you'll see in the URL string, mine is SQL Server. Also, when you're going to look and see if you are integrated security. So in this URL, if you see integrated security equals true, then you're using a user on the Windows service that actually matches the user for the SQL database. So that as an additional step, we want to make sure we have a certain DLL because that's how you get the two to communicate correctly. So if you do not have that, you will be using a SQL authentication user like I am here, and it will not say integrated security equals true. While we're in here, we also want to see if we're clustered. Clustered systems use multiple GoAnywhere nodes to talk to a single database. In this case, this one is not enabled on the system. And if yours is not enabled, then this will be pretty simple. We do clusters. We do have to upgrade each node in the cluster. All nodes do have to come down. This is not a zero downtime upgrade. You do have to take down all nodes in the cluster, upgrade the primary node, and then you can upgrade to secondary or third nodes if you have that many. Okay, so we now know mine's not clustered, and we can say no here. There are multiple servers shut down before beginning. We have, when we do a cluster, if yours is a cluster, we upgrade the database table in the first upgrade. The rest are just file changes. So it's pretty simple after you do the first one. So how do we do all this? Well, we have to download the guide from my.goanywhere.com. So I'm going to download the guide from my.goanywhere.com. I'm going to sign in here. Pause as I put my credentials in so I don't share those. Okay, once I'm signed in, sign in, not sing in. I don't think anybody's going to be singing. We're going to choose our product. We're going to do product downloads, sign in and product downloads, and we're going to choose GoAnywhere MFT. And we're going to choose our operating system from the drop down. In this case, for Windows. Now we want to get two particular files. We want the upgrades section, we're in upgrades, and we want to download the upgrade jar file, which takes a little bit. This is pretty fast speed. They're decent size. And then we want to download the upgrade guide as well. These steps are taken from the upgrade guide. So the best thing to do is read the upgrade from cover to cover as far as your operating system is concerned and get those steps done before you ever attempt to upgrade so you know what's going on. Okay, so we've got the upgrade guide, we've got the upgrade jar, we've got everything we need. So we're going to use the guide and we're going to upgrade. I'm going to get out of the portal and we're still on 7.3.1. One thing we want to make sure we do when we upgrade is that we have enough hard drive space for a backup of the install directory. So If we were to look inside of our install directory, and if we go to, in my case, it's C program files, Fortra, and we have GoAnywhere, I want to see how big the folder is. Because what I'm telling you is that when we do an upgrade, we back up this folder. So this folder gets back up during the process. So in this case, it's 500 meg and it's not that big, but I have 100 gig on this. I have 60 gig free of 100, and 55 meg is not going to be a big deal. But if you had 5 gig left and your server folder was 20 gig, then you're not going to have enough room to do this upgrade. So just another step to kind of double check that you have enough room. I think I had a 9 gig on another test environment, so it could be big. Now, if you get in here and it is big, you're going to look for a couple different files. There's something called an HS error PID log or PID dump. These files can get pretty big, and they're just basically a PID as a process ID. This is GoAnywhere had a problem with a particular process. The log files are not really big, but the MDMP files are. So these are only necessary for troubleshooting that particular error, and you can delete those without impacting the solution. So delete all the HS_error files. A couple other tips before we get started. If your version's older than 7.7, we've changed the SQL driver to do a couple different things. The Microsoft SQL driver does encrypt by default now. Our legacy did not, so if you do not have encrypt equals false or encrypt equals true and trust certificate, you will not be able to do the correct process here. So let's take a look at that. So in this case, if I look at my GoAnywhere, the database configuration has nothing about encrypting. It has nothing about trusting a certificate. So in this case, here's a GA data that does have that string. So I have a trust certificate equals true and encrypt equals true. Now, it's implying that encrypt equals true. So you need to trust the certificate as well, because if you encrypt it and don't trust the certificate, or at least have the certificate in the key vault, it will not work. If you're using integrated authentication, you got to look for integrated security equals true inside of your URL. There's additional steps there. We have to get a DLL. If you have that, we'll go through those steps at the end, but we'll skip to the end. The other thing is we want to make sure they have enough connections. We changed, if you're older than 7.5, we changed our database pooling. So there's certain max connections. For the most part, SQL doesn't really use this without an issue, but we can check those connections on our SQL server itself. And then finally, if you have a version older than 7.4 and you upgrade file monitors that are using network resources need reviewed for file modified or created, we've changed one of the attributes on how we check that, and we have to disable those servers before we do an upgrade and then re-enable those. So let's jump over to our SQL Server and we'll look at the max connections. So if you do a max connection, you can see what I'll put that back into space here. We have plenty of max connections. Now, the new database engine will take all the connections that are attributed in the pool. So we have a pool. If you have 4 nodes and each is 100, you need at least a 400 max connections. It no longer borrows them, except it provisions those right away. So typically, if you have a 2-node cluster, we'll make sure this number is at least 200. If you have this second string here and you execute that, this means unlimited. So that's just the max connections you can have. Very rarely an issue with Microsoft SQL. If you have another database, then there's a few different ways you can check those max connections. You just want to make sure when you check those max connections that all the nodes in the cluster in this pool, maximum connections, 100. So if I had 2 nodes, that would be 200. If I didn't have that many inside of my database engine like Microsoft SQL, then I wouldn't be able to connect because I'm trying to use more than is actually allotted by the database. Okay, so we've got our SQL Server ready. We've got everything we need to get started. Now, before we ever get started, we need to make sure that we have a backup. So we will want to back up our database. You or your DBA can do some sort of backup, whether you have a maintenance plan, whatever you want to do, back up your GA data database so you have a spot in time where it's backed up. Before you do that, you'll want to also stop GoAnywhere, and you can check and see if there's anything going on in the system before you do that. There's a few places to look. Active sessions, this is just my admin, and then active transfers. So here's what's going on with our workflows, our outbound type of requests, and here's what's going on with our services, our inbound requests. So if there are connections here, you can wait for those to end before you start. Just another place to look to see if anything's hot on the system before you actually shut it down. So we'll go to our services and stop GoAnywhere. Some environments, some newer windows you have to run as an admin. You'll also want to be on this server as an admin with your remote desktop. If your GoAnywhere service also has a user on it, there could be a sign that you actually are using integrated auth. If it says local system like mine, then you're not using integrated auth. You're going to use the admin that you signed into the system with. So if this has got a user on it, then now we need to see if you've got integrated authentication. Either way, we're going to stop the service. So GoAnywhere is going to come down. And this is when we want to take a snapshot of the VM GoAnywhere. We want to capture the environment before we upgrade. It's very crucial. We want the environment backed up first. We're going to back this up, this VM, with whatever utility you want to use. And we're going to back up this database with whatever utility you want to use before we ever get started. Percentage of failures are low in GoAnywhere upgrades, but they do happen. So the longer you've waited to upgrade, the higher the chance of a failure in your upgrade because of the volume of iterations it has to go through to upgrade completely. So before we upgrade, we stopped our service and we are getting ready to upgrade, and we've stopped, we've backed everything up, and we've got a place, we've got a safety net, as I like to call it, and then we're ready to actually do the upgrade. So we've stopped the service, and I added some steps in here. Remember, we're taking a snapshot of the VM, we're creating a restore point, and we're taking a backup of the database. We need both. We can't just take a backup of GoAnywhere, because if the database gets upgraded and the application doesn't, there's a mismatch in the database version. We need both in order to have a successful restore point. Okay, so we need to copy that upgrade jar file we downloaded into the install directory upgrader folder. So we'll do that now, just using Windows File Explorer. We'll go to our downloads and we're going to grab, nope, I'm on the SQL box, okay, on the GoAnywhere box. Again, Ajax error. Now, I do have a monitor that's going to cause this to fail, because I've got one of those, and I'm going to show you what that error looks like if you didn't disable the monitors that have a file modified tied to network shares. So I'll grab this from the downloads. We're going to grab the jar file. Remember, read the guide. This is just another helpful tutorial video for you to do that along with your guide. So we're going to go to Fortra, and we're going to go to GoAnywhere, and we're going to go to Upgrader, and we're going to place this file in here. And just like it says, we're going to rename it to get rid of the extension. So I'm going to use F2, easy rename function on Windows, and I'm going to get rid of that extension. So now I've got it named right, and I'm going to run Windows Administrator, sorry, command prompt as a Windows Administrator. And we're going to change directory to that. So you can do a CD/enter for right here. You also want to do that run as administrator, and then we're going to go to the install directory. So CD to the install, oops. Click over here for focus, CD to the install directory, which is program files. If I hit a few characters and hit tab, it will let me tab. And this was in Fortra, and this is GoAnywhere, and this is Upgrader. Now I'm in that directory, and I need to run an upgrade.bat file to actually fire the upgrade. It will begin the upgrade, but we expect this to fail in this case because I left a monitor enabled of a certain type that GoAnywhere is not going to like. So I'm just going to show you how to handle that condition as well. GoAnywhere validation failed. Upgrade was not started. The good news is if you forget one of these monitors, you're still okay because the validation failed. It didn't get halfway through. You now have to go back to your safety net restore point. It stopped it before it ever attempted to. So it'll tell you exactly where the log file is. So I'm going to go look at that log file and see what happened. Here's my log file. And if I look towards the bottom, I'm just going to do a Control N to get to the bottom. And I scroll up a little bit. I can see validating monitors, upgrade failed. Disable the following monitors to complete the upgrade, network share monitor. So now what I have to do is I've got to start GoAnywhere back up. I've got to sign back in and disable the monitor or monitors that caused my upgrade to fail. So you'll want to note these. If you've got a busy environment with a lot of monitors, you want to note which ones were enabled and disabled during this process. You may have some inactive ones. So once this launches again, we'll have to retry that process. Sometimes it takes a minute. We'll pause while it's waiting. And we're going to disable the monitor. In this case, I only have one. I'm just going to deactivate this one. Okay, now that that's deactivated, I can stop the service and attempt to upgrade again. If you look at the upgrader directory, we did not lose our upgrade jar. If you upgrade and it gets past the validation, starts and fails, the upgrade jar will be removed. But we also complete backups during this process. So GoAnywhere stopped. I can just hit the up arrow to try again, the upgrade VAT, and let the system upgrade. Wow, this does not take too terribly long. While we're waiting, remember the log file goes to this upgrade 7.8.4 number and then year, month, day. And you can see we've got now a number 2 since the first one failed. Okay, one file was moved, it was upgraded successfully. So I can look in the logs and kind of correspond that in the number 2 log. GoAnywhere was upgraded successfully, so that's good news. So we're ready to start back up. Now, let's see if GoAnywhere has any issues starting due to the driver conditions that are not being met with the default driver. And while we're waiting, we can also look at the GoAnywhere logs. The standard GoAnywhere log is under, well, since we're not clustered, it's going to be under user data logs. And it'll be the GoAnywhere.log. Starting. Let's see if it had any problems there. Okay, we're back in. Let's look at what we did to the URL. Before we do that, let's take a look and see that we're upgraded successfully. Help and about. We are now on 7.8.4, which is exactly where we wanted to be. System database configuration. Let's switch this view back to where we can see the whole thing. we've added the encrypt equals false into the URL for you. So if you did not put that in there, you can definitely change it to encrypt equals true and trust the certificate or add the certificates. There's a couple different things in your URL you can change. Not super hard to do. I've added them here. Encrypt equals true, port number, trust certificate equals true. So if you want to encrypt a connection, you can, but we've appended the encrypt equals false in order for the upgrade to be successful. So we've upgraded and we're in there. That's most of the way through. If you had other SQL resources like I do here without those attributes of encrypt equals false, then you would not necessarily be able to connect because that driver requires some designation of encryption. It's going to default to yes, so you have to tell it no if you're looking to troubleshoot that. Now, if you are looking at an encrypted equals true and potentially an integrated security look is true, there's links here to reach the Microsoft website for downloading the correct driver and grabbing the DLL. We call it a Microsoft Auth DLL. Those particular DLLs will be placed inside only if you are integrated auth. You'll have to go into the Java home, into the JRE bin, and place in a Microsoft SQL Auth DLL. So these are the links for that. You can go just do a Google search for SQL JDBC drivers. We run a 12.8 driver, and we extract that from that download. It'll be inside of a folder here. Let me point that out quick. So I copied the URL from here. And so here's the download. We're going to download a zip file for that. So when we download the zip file, inside of the zip file, you will extract it. I'm just showing you where the file is inside this auth. We're a 64-bit system. This auth DLL right here needs to be placed inside of the JRE bin here. That will allow integrated security to work. So you copy and paste it in here, you're in good shape. If you have FIPS on, there are additional steps that we would work with you. There's a couple other steps. If you had FIPS on already, those should already be covered in your current JRE setup. But we do have tips for you on that. Let me pull those up. Okay, so if you have FIPS equals true, if not, your upgrade is complete. You can begin to use GoAnywhere again. Go back and start that monitor. So that monitor I disabled is now going to still be in here disabled. So I need to go back in and re-enable it or activate it. So once I've activated that, we are on 7.8.4 and we're ready to go. If you have FIPS, remember FIPS would show down here. It also shows in help and about. If you have FIPS on, this is the only time you need to pay attention to this part. What you would also have to do is the steps here. You have to get to the Java security folder or in the JRE lib or lib directory, library directory. So we're going to go to the JRE library directory and go to the security folder and go to java.security. In this case, we've moved it just a little bit. It is actually in the GoAnywhere JRE CONF security Java security here. So you can just open that with some sort of text editor. I've got Notepad++. You would go to the bottom of this file. At the bottom of the file, you're going to enter this com.rsa.ssl.compatibility. I don't know if there's an easy way for you to copy from this video, but it is kind of a bit to copy it in there. We're going to put this into here. These are on two different screens, so I won't copy it, but this belongs here, and we're going to save it. Then, once we have that saved, we're going to go to our other directory inside of here. We're going to go to GoAnywhere Tomcat, and inside of Tomcat, there is going to be a bin, Tomcat bin. There's going to be a GoAnywhere WEXE. This is going to be whatever the name of your Windows service. So you're going to run this as an admin, and you're going to go to the Java tab, and in the Java tab, you're going to put this in here at the bottom, right? So this switch option, this needs to be copied into here. Then you can restart GoAnywhere Windows service and you'll be able to get in with integrated auth or with, in this case, with FIPS equals true. You can get in, if you do not have FIPS, this is FIPS only. FIPS only. Not super common, but FIPS can be on. When you have FIPS on, it will show in your footer bar here, right? So that's how you handle FIPS, and that is for FIPS and SQL drivers. So turn that on to make sure that works. Any questions, please reach out to support. Otherwise, our services team is well prepared to handle this. We do offer upgrade services for this event, and you can contact our professional services team for assistance. Thank you.